The kids mocked the black girl in karate class, not knowing she had won a national gold medal. The laughter hit harder than any punch she had ever taken. It echoed through the dojo like a slap across the face of everything she had fought to overcome. Tasha stood at the edge of the practice mat, her feet together, hands clasped at her sides, trembling not from fear, but from something worse, familiarity. The way they giggled when she bowed. The way their eyes scanned her hair, her skin, her every move as if she were a zoo exhibit, not a peer. It was the same look she'd grown used to at school, in stores, even walking down her own street. But here, in the dojo or sanctuary, it cut deeper. Bet she can't even throw a kick without falling over her braids, one boy snickered. Another mimicked her stance with exaggerated sloppiness, and the group burst into laughter again. Sensei Mark, a wiry white man in his 50s, clapped his hands, oblivious or maybe just indifferent. Partners, let's go. Nobody moved toward her. She bent her head, pretending to retie her belt as heat rose to her face. The smell of tatami mats and sweat, once comforting, now made her stomach churn. All the hours she'd spent training, the bloodied knuckles, the solitary late nights drilling kata in her garage, none of that mattered here. Not to them. She finally paired off with a girl named Becky, blonde. Smirking, Tasha bowed respectfully as taught. Becky didn't return it. You ever even been in a real class before? Becky asked with mock sweetness. I've trained for 3 years. In what? Jungle gym wrestling. Becky grinned and bounced on her heels. Tasha said nothing. She let the tension coil tightly in her gut, like a spring. They moved into sparring position. Becky lunged sloppily, a textbook mistake. Tasha's body reacted before her mind could catch upside step, parry, clean sweep. Becky hit the mat hard. The laughter stopped. Becky's face twisted with embarrassment. Lucky shot, she spat, jumping up. Sensei Mark raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. No praise. No correction. Later in the locker room, as Tasha laced her shoes, a group of the girls surrounded her. They were all light-skinned, uniform in expression. Don't get cocky, said one. This isn't some ghetto brawl, another chimed in. We do real karate here. Tasha didn't respond. She just walked out. In the car, her mother watched her quietly through the rearview mirror. Rough day. Tasha stared out the window. They hate me. Her mom didn't flinch. Do they know who you are? Tasha turned. What difference would it make? Her mom's grip tightened on the wheel. Then show them. The next day, Tasha brought the medal. It stayed zipped inside her bag during warm-ups, during drills, during the group kata. She didn't need to show it. Not yet. That wasn't the point. The real proving ground came after class, when Sensei announced to sign up for a weekend sparring exhibition. Volunteers. Every hand shot up except Tasha's. She waited. You too, Tasha? Sensei asked, without enthusiasm. She nodded. Put me last. Laughter again. One of the boys called out, saving the best for worst. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from focus. That Saturday, the dojo was full. Parents lined the walls. Kids and GIs buzzed with excitement. Most matches were clumsy but spirited, cheers erupting with every point scored. When it was Tasha's turn, her opponent was just Sona's stocky kid who had mocked her the loudest. Don't break a nail, he sneered, stepping onto the mat. Tasha bowed. This time, he bowed too but exaggerated, laughing. The match began. He came in hard, aiming for spectacle. High kicks, loud grunts. Tasha danced around him, measured, fluid. When she struck, it was precise. 1 point. Then another. Then another. Gasps. Whispers. Jason grew frantic, angry. He rushed her. Tasha ducked low, swept his leg, and for the second time that week, a white kid hit the mat hard because of her. Silence. Then a slow clap from a man in the back. More claps followed. Sensei Mark approached and raised her hand. She's a national champion, he muttered into the mic, finally reading the card she'd filled out. Gold medalist last year in her division. Murmurs rippled through the room. Becky's jaw dropped. Tasha unzipped her bag and held up the medal. It shimmered under the fluorescent lights. I earned this, she said quietly. Alone. No dojo. No fans. Just work. No one laughed. But she wasn't done. I didn't come here to be accepted, she said, voice steady. I came to win. And if you can't handle that, I suggest you find another hobby. It was over. Not the racism. Not the ignorance. But the silence. The pretending. The feeling that she had to hide her greatness to survive in their world. When she walked off the mat, her mother stood with tears in her eyes. Later that night, she sat in her room and stared at the medal. It wasn't made of gold. It was made of grit, of scars, of every time she'd bit her tongue instead of her attacker. And she wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. The dojo felt different on Monday. Not louder, not friendlier, just quieter in all the ways that mattered. People still glanced at Tasha, but now there was something else behind their eyes. Calculation, hesitation. For the first time, they weren't looking through her, they were looking at her. Not because they wanted to laugh, because they didn't know what to say. Tasha, a timid voice called as she entered. It was May, a younger girl with braces and frizzy hair. Tasha turned, surprised. You were awesome on Saturday, May said, eyes wide. I watched the whole match. My dad said your form was textbook. Tasha smiled faintly. Thanks. May hesitated, then blurted. Can I train with you sometime? Tasha blinked. No one had ever asked her that here. Yeah, she said slowly. Sure. As May skipped away, Tasha moved to her usual spot in the back of the line for warm-ups. She didn't want to stand in front. Not yet. But today, Sensei Mark cleared his throat. Tasha, come up. She stiffened. You'll lead warm-ups today, he said. All eyes shifted. Her heart thudded in her chest. Was this a reward or a trap? Still, she stepped forward. She counted off the stretches, the jumping jacks, the knee bends, just as she'd seen others do. Her voice was clear, steady. She could feel the energy change around her, not admiration yet, not respect, but something closer to recognition. When the session ended, Sensei pulled her aside. You fight well, he said gruffly. But that's not enough. Tasha narrowed her eyes. What do you mean? Winning's easy when you're angry. But anger fades. Discipline doesn't. Her jaw clenched. I've been disciplined for years, she said, voice low. Anger just gets me through your silence. There was a beat, a shift in his posture. Then he nodded. We're holding a citywide youth demo in 2 months. Team Kata, you should lead. Tasha stared. You want me to lead? Yes. She swallowed. And the others? They'll follow. She wasn't sure if it was a challenge or a promise. The next few weeks tested her more than any tournament. Becky refused to make eye contact. Jason avoided her entirely. Others pretended to be supportive but fumbled their steps during group drills and then blamed her leadership. One evening, while they practiced the opening formation, a boy named Drew deliberately bumped into her. Oops, he smirked. Guess we're not used to following your style. Tasha locked eyes with him. If my style wins gold, maybe you should take notes. He scoffed, but said nothing. Back at home, she collapsed on her bed. I don't think I can do this, she muttered into her pillow. Her mom came in quietly and sat beside her. You know what the hardest part of being first is? Tasha looked up. What? Everyone's watching you fall, so they don't have to rise. Tasha stared at the ceiling. You're not here to fit in, baby. You're here to shake the floor. Her mother squeezed her hand and left. The next morning, Tasha showed up early. Before anyone else arrived, she went through the entire kata twice, then 3 times until sweat dripped down her back and her legs trembled. When the others arrived, she called them into formation. Again, she said. And again. They groaned. She didn't care. If we're going to perform, she said, we're not walking in like we're afraid of the mat. Becky crossed her arms. Why should we take orders from you? Tasha turned to her, expression neutral. Because when you lose, they blame me. There was a long pause. Then Becky looked away. Fine, she muttered. They practiced. Hard. Day by day, Tasha noticed a change. Timing improved. Sloppiness turned into precision. They began to look like a team, even if they didn't feel like one yet. During water breaks, May stuck by her side. You think we'll win? May asked one afternoon. Tasha considered the question. Winning didn't mean medals. Not anymore. I think we'll matter, she said. The citywide event came fast. The auditorium was packed with students and instructors from all over the state. Each dojo had its own banners, chants, colors. Tasha's team stood backstage, nerves jittering through their bodies like static. Sensei Mark approached. Win or lose, he said quietly. They'll remember you. Tasha looked around. Becky was pacing. Jason kept cracking his knuckles. May smiled nervously. She took a deep breath. You ready? She asked. They nodded. As they stepped out onto the floor, the announcer read their dojo's name. Polite claps followed. Then silence. Tasha stepped forward and bowed. The others followed. As the music began and the movement started, she felt everything else fall away: the doubt, the pain, the stares. She was a blur of motion and control. Every strike, every block, every stance fell into place like notes in a song. The audience watched, silent. They finished in perfect unison. Then applause. Not wild, not roaring, but real. After the performance, judges tallied scores. Another team won gold, then silver. Tasha's team earned bronze. There was some disappointment in the ranks. But Tasha felt no shame. As they walked off, May clutched her hand. "That was the best we've ever done," she whispered. Tasha smiled. "Yeah, it was." Later, as she passed a group from another dojo, she overheard them. "Hey," one boy said, pointing at her. "That's the girl from the national finals, right?" "Yeah," someone else replied. "She's legit." They weren't mocking. They were listening. Back home, Tasha placed the bronze medal beside her gold one. It didn't shine as brightly, but it meant more. Because this time, she hadn't fought alone. The weeks after the citywide competition passed in a blur of drills, soreness, and whispers that never seemed to fade. Something in the dojo had shifted again, but this time, it wasn't rooted in mockery or disbelief. It was more cautious, as if people were unsure how to approach her now that she had proved them wrong and refused to apologize for it. She was no longer invisible. She was undeniable. Still, that didn't mean things got easier. It just meant she had no choice but to get stronger. One afternoon after class, while packing her gear, Becky approached. Tasha didn't look up. "I want to talk," Becky said. Tasha zipped her bag slowly. "Now you want to talk?" Becky shifted awkwardly. "I was kind of a jerk." "I know." Tasha stood. Her voice was calm. "You weren't kind of. You were fully." There was a pause. Becky didn't argue. "I didn't think you'd be that good," she said. "You walked in and, I don't know, you didn't seem like." "Like what?" Tasha said, looking her straight in the eyes. Becky looked away. "Like someone who could be better than me." Tasha's silence pressed like weight. "I'm not saying that makes it right," Becky added. "It doesn't. I was stupid." "Yeah," Tasha said. "You were." She swung her bag over her shoulder. "But at least you're saying something now." Becky glanced up. "You still leading the next demo?" "I guess." "Well," Becky rubbed her neck. "If you want, I could help. You know, with timing drills. If you want." Tasha didn't smile. "Not yet." But she nodded. "We'll see." It wasn't friendship. It wasn't forgiveness. It was the beginning of something better: accountability. As spring deepened, Sensei Mark surprised them with a bigger announcement: an open invitation tournament, statewide, with teams competing across multiple divisions: sparring, kata, and freestyle. "We're entering 3 groups," he said. "Tasha, you'll captain one of them." Gasps rippled through the room. Tasha didn't react, even as heads turned toward her. She knew by now that excellence made people uncomfortable before it inspired them. Sensei handed her a clipboard. "Build your team. Choose wisely." That night, she sat at her desk, staring at the names of her classmates. She didn't want a team that looked good. She wanted one that trained hard. She chose May first. Then, after a long pause, she wrote down Becky's name. It surprised even her. But Becky had been consistent. Quiet. Focused. Less cruel. Less loud. Then came a few more named students who weren't stars, but weren't afraid to grind. When she handed the clipboard in, Sensei looked it over and gave a single nod. For the next 5 weeks, the dojo became a crucible. They trained 5 days a week. Tasha ran drills until their legs burned and timing became instinct. She corrected stances with the same precision she once used to block insults. Sometimes, her team pushed back. "This is too much," one boy, Eric, grunted. "It's just a demo." "It's never just anything when they're waiting for you to fail," Tasha snapped. "Who's waiting?" he asked, confused. Tasha raised an eyebrow. "You've never been the only black girl in a room full of people who think you don't belong." Eric flushed and looked away. No one questioned her intensity again. One evening, as they practiced late, Sensei Mark watched from the side. After the final set, he approached her alone. "You remind me of someone," he said. Tasha wiped sweat from her forehead. "Yeah? Who?" "My old instructor. He was the only Japanese man teaching karate in our town when I was young. People doubted him, dismissed him, and he was harder on us than anyone. Why? She asked. Because he knew we were a reflection of him. His name. His fight. Tasha didn't say anything, but the words sat heavy in her chest as she walked home that night. At dinner, her mom slid a folder across the table. Tasha opened it and found a newspaper clipping, a grainy photo of a 10-year-old girl holding a trophy nearly her size. You remember this? Her mom asked, smiling. Tasha laughed. I look like a baby. You were a baby, but you still won. Her mother leaned forward. They're not ready for you. That's why they fight you. Tasha nodded. She knew. The tournament arrived with the pulse of adrenaline in the air. Hundreds of students from across the state poured into the venue. Their GIs were spotless, their belts tight. Cameras flashed. Coaches barked orders. Families cheered from the stands. Tasha stood with her team in the staging area, bouncing on her toes. Her stomach fluttered not from nerves, but from fire. They had trained too hard to fold now. Their first event was freestyling original team routine, choreographed and practiced until every movement was seared into muscle memory. They stepped out under the lights. The announcer mispronounced her name. Again. She corrected him through the mic without hesitation. Then the music began. They moved as one sharp, fluid, fierce. Tasha led from the front, spinning into a high roundhouse that landed a fraction of an inch from Becky's face. Becky didn't even flinch. They finished in a final synchronized bow. The crowd roared. Later, in the sparring division, they came up against the reigning champions and elite dojo from the north with polished uniforms and cocky smirks. Their leader, a tall boy named Bryce, smirked at Tasha. Hope you're better than you look. She grinned. Hope you're ready to eat your words. It wasn't an easy fight. The other team was skilled, fast, brutal, but Tasha's team fought smarter. When it came down to the final match-tied score, all eyes watching Sensei Mark looked at her. You want the last round? Tasha nodded. She stepped onto the mat across from Bryce. He came out aggressive, confident. She absorbed, sidestepped, blocked. Then struck. 2 points. Then one more. The whistle blew. Silence. Then thunderous applause. They'd won. She turned, breathing hard, sweat dripping down her temple. Her team rushed her, lifting her briefly into the air. Later, as medals were distributed, the announcer paused at her name. This year's standout competitor: grit, leadership, and precision. A champion already, but still climbing. Tasha stepped forward and received the gold. It felt heavy, but this time, it didn't carry the weight of proving anything to anyone else. Only herself. As they exited the stage, May pulled on her sleeve. You're gonna be famous after this. Tasha laughed. I don't want fame. What do you want? Tasha thought for a moment. Then she said, I want the next girl who looks like me to walk in and not have to fight twice as hard just to be seen. May nodded. As they packed their gear and left the building, parents from other teams approached. Coaches too. One even asked if Tasha would consider training at their academy. She smiled politely and shook her head. This is my dojo, she said. The sun was setting outside. And for the first time, the light didn't feel like something she had to chase. It felt like something she had earned. Hoi ChatGPT. Summer arrived quietly, but for Tasha, everything had changed. Her face was on the dojo website, now front page. Student spotlight, state champion. Her name was mentioned in local news blurbs, community pages, and even a small online martial arts blog. Her inbox started filling with messages from girls across the country, most of them Black, sharing stories of being overlooked, belittled, doubted. Tasha, you make me feel like I don't have to hide anymore. I wanted to quit my karate class. Then I saw your video. Thank you for existing. Each one was a small flame in her chest, a quiet reminder of the impact she never expected to have. But the praise didn't swell her head. It reminded her of the first day she walked into the dojo and saw no thing, no representation, no space, no safety. Just mats, mirrors, and indifference. She hadn't forgotten. She didn't plan to. The dojo was busier now. New students, new parents, fresh belts with big dreams. Among them, Tasha noticed a new girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with deep brown skin and tight coiled hair. She clung to her mother's arm as they stepped inside. Tasha smiled and walked over. You here to train? She asked gently. The girl nodded slowly, eyes wide. I'm Tasha. The girl whispered. I know. Something about that made Tasha's breath catch for half a second. Come on, she said, reaching out her hand. I'll show you around. She helped the girl tie her first belt, walked her through basic stances, stood by her side during warm-ups when she got nervous. Tasha remembered how it felt to be surrounded by people who didn't know her name, but were already convinced she didn't belong. Not this time. Not to this girl. After class, Sensei Mark pulled her aside. You thinking of teaching? He asked casually. Tasha blinked. What? You've got the eye, the patience, the presence. Most kids your age just want to show off. You want others to shine too. She hesitated. I'm not sure I'm ready. You don't wait to be ready, he said. You become it. The words sat with her all the way home. That night, her mom placed a small box on the dinner table. What's this? Tasha asked. Open it. Inside was a framed photo of her taken from the side, mid-kick during the tournament. Her face was focused, fierce. The caption underneath read, not just strong, unstoppable. I had it printed, her mom said, because I want you to remember that girl. Tasha stared at it for a long time. Then she whispered, I'm still her. I know, her mom said, but someday you'll be even more. The next few months passed with purpose. Tasha began assisting beginner classes twice a week. At first, just helping with warm-ups and basic forms. But then Sensei Mark let her lead drills, correct stances, explain discipline. She found her rhythm not just as a fighter, but as a guide. One evening, she watched her small team of beginners mimic a sequence she had taught them. The moves weren't perfect. The timing was off. But their eyes were alive, focused, believing. That mattered more than any medal. Still, the world outside the dojo hadn't changed entirely. She overheard things in school hallways. That karate girl? She's so aggressive. She only got famous because she's black. But she wouldn't last a minute in a real street fight. Tasha learned not to flinch, not to fold. She wasn't their story to reduce. She had already written her own. But one day, a boy cornered her by her locker. You think you're better than everyone now, huh? Tasha looked up from her books. I think I'm better than the version of myself who stayed quiet to make people like you comfortable. He blinked, then walked away. At home that night, she told her mom what happened. Her mom didn't scold her, didn't ask her to play nice. She just nodded slowly. Pride doesn't make you loud. It makes you steady. By fall, Tasha was nominated for a local youth award for leadership and resilience. She didn't expect to win, but she dressed in her cleanest GI and attended the ceremony anyway. When her name was called, the applause was genuine. She stepped onto the stage, medal around her neck, hands steady. The lights didn't feel blinding this time. The silence didn't feel threatening. She spoke into the microphone. I used to think I had to shrink myself to be accepted, but shrinking doesn't make others taller. It just makes the world smaller. Someone in the back stood up and clapped. Others followed. Afterward, a man approached her mid-30s, strong build, tired eyes. My daughter watches your clips on repeat, he said. You've given her something I couldn't. A mirror. Tasha's throat tightened. Tell her I said she doesn't need anyone's permission to shine. He smiled. She already knows. Back in the dojo, as winter approached, Tasha trained harder. Not to prove anything anymore, but because she loved it. The quiet repetition. The deep breath before a strike. The clarity in the blur of movement. One evening, after a long session, she stayed behind and stared at her reflection in the dojo mirror. Behind her stood Sensei Mark. You know what I see, he said. Tasha raised an eyebrow. A girl who needs water? He chuckled. A leader. Not just in here. Out there. She shook her head. I'm just doing what I can. That's all it takes, he said. You changed the tone of this place. You changed how people see. Tasha looked at herself again. Maybe he was right. But she wasn't done. She began organizing workshops for underrepresented girls in nearby schools, free martial arts intro classes for girls of color who'd never stepped onto a mat. Some laughed nervously when they walked in. Others stood frozen, unsure. Tasha welcomed each one like they mattered. Because they did. She remembered too clearly what it felt like to doubt that. And then, one day, the dojo hosted its first Girls of Power, showcasing an event run entirely by female students, with Tasha as lead instructor. The mats were full. Families watched. Judges sat quietly in the back. Tasha watched one of her youngest students, a quiet, clumsy girl named Arya, nail her routine with fire in her eyes. When the crowd applauded, Arya beamed. Later, she ran up to Tasha. Did you see me? She cried. Tasha grinned. You were a star. No one's ever clapped for me like that. Tasha knelt beside her. Get used to it. As the year came to an end and the dojo closed for the holidays, Tasha stayed behind after the last class. She stood alone on the mat, took one long breath, then moved through her favorite kata, slowly, deliberately, like a quiet prayer. When she finished, she bowed to the empty room and smiled, because she knew. She had turned mockery into momentum, loneliness into leadership, silence into strength. She was no longer the girl people underestimated. She was the reason they never would again. The end. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.